This is Radio Cairo. This is World of Info. My name is Dr. Amr Mabrouk. Dua Muhammad is at the control. It's the April. And we are here with you for 1 hour. Well, today is a very interesting day because we are having His Excellency Ambassador Dominic, Ambassador of Singapore in Cairo, and he is a dear friend to Egypt and to me, of course, and he's a very seasoned diplomat who served his country in Germany, in New York, and as an ambassador in Laos, and now an ambassador in Egypt. Since when, I don't want to say, because his distinguished service, he was asked by his government to stay as long as possible, because the things that Ambassador Dominic did in Egypt for the Egyptian-Singaporean relations really has had a very great impact, and we have seen this impact last week with the visit of the President of Singapore to Egypt. Ambassador Dominic has a degree in law and also a master's degree in international relations. And sir, thank you very much for accepting to come to us in this program in such a very tight schedule that I know how busy you are, especially since last week, or maybe last 2 months you've been preparing for a very successful visit that really ended up with great results and great impact on the Egyptian-Singaporean relations. Thank you again, sir.
No, thank you. I'm always happy to be here.
Well, it's a great pleasure and honor. And today when we talk about Singapore, we have always to keep in mind how Singapore has a very big place in our heart, and definitely it's a very historically it's a country that really, although it's an island country made of 63 islands, yet in 1819 it was a small area with only 1,000 inhabitants. So do you think really, sir, that 1819 is the real beginning of the miracle? 1965 better?
Well, I think...
I know it's a tricky question.
Yes. No, I think in 1819 we have to at least give the British some credit.
That's very kind of you, sir.
For establishing the port city of Singapore. Of course, before... Actually, but we did have a history before 1819. And, we were actually a port city for a very long time in the 12th and 13th centuries, and under various Hindu kingdoms called the Majapahit and the Parameswara kingdoms. And in this time, Singapore was a port city and a trading city for these two Hindu empires. But I think since the 13th, 14th centuries, Singapore declined. In fact, when those Hindu empires fell, Singapore went into decline. And by the time the British arrived in 1819, we were just a small fishing village with a few 1,000 inhabitants. And the British saw the potential of Singapore as a port city and a strategic city, and of course
a deep sea port, which makes it very special.
Exactly, but also there was some geopolitics involved in the question of where the British decided to place Singapore or their port city for the region, and the geopolitics was because of the Napoleonic Wars back in Europe, and because at that time there were the Dutch and the British in this region, and the Dutch were in Indonesia, and the British were in Malaysia, right? And as a result of the Napoleonic Wars, there was a peace treaty which made the agreement that everything north of a certain line would be British, and everything south of that line would be Dutch.
That's very cunning.
So actually, the British had captured Jakarta from the Dutch during the Napoleonic Wars. So as a result of the peace settlement, they had to give back Jakarta to the Dutch.
They kept their
oath. And then they had to find another port in the region. So they chose Singapore.
This reminds me of Sykes-Picot, right?
Yes.
When the Brits went to Damascus, and then later on they gave it back to the French. That's really very interesting.
From the E of Acre to the last K of Kirkuk.
Yes.
They draw a line.
Yes. I mean, it's a very silly, strange line. Sykes and Biko, and to imagine that Sykes was not even the Foreign Service Secretary. I mean, he was just one of the diplomats. I mean, and who has not that. The only experience he had that his brother-in-law was the High Commissioner in Cairo.
And he claimed to speak Turkish and Arabic, but apparently, in truth, it wasn't so.
Yes, no. I mean, it's good that he suffered from. He was saved by COVID, because otherwise everybody would have known the real truth. I mean, he died, of course, unfortunately, from COVID, and then people thought that he was a real hero or a champion. Anyway, let's leave Middle East and we talk about Singapore. And we I know today we are going to be having a very busy talk because we are talking about Egyptian-Singaporean relations. But since we talked about 1819, we have to talk about 1965.
Mm-hmm.
There is a gentleman who has gained and earned the respect of the whole world, of Egypt and the whole world, and of course the Singaporeans. He still lives in their hearts. And I know that you were lucky enough to serve with him as a junior diplomat. You attended meetings with him, and you have seen how careful he was in teaching you and teaching your colleagues and teaching all the civil servants and the army servants in Singapore, making a country, a real country of something that people thought that it would be doomed. And I'm talking about, of course, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. With all due respect of his care and of his kindness and of his nationalism towards your country. So Singapore and Lee Kuan Yew are two sides of the same coin, right, sir?
Yes, definitely. In fact, he is our founding father, and he was the one who brought Singapore to independence. And since 1965, we have developed from a third world to first world country.
That's the name of the book.
Yes, exactly. But it's the truth, because it really happened within one generation, that we started with a GDP of $600 per person in 1965 to now over $60,000 per person.
That's good.
So
100 times.
Exactly. And it has been, I lived through that whole period, and I can say that the changes that have resulted are amazing.
Mm-hmm. And of course, one of the very first countries that accepted and declared its acceptance of Singapore was Egypt, and Nasser's Egypt in particular. And that's why Lee Kuan Yew had a great respect, not just to Gamal Abdel Nasser, but also to the whole of Egypt. And that's why the relations, now we're celebrating almost 60 years of relations between us. And I was happy to attend the 55th anniversary, and now it is 60 years today. So tell us about this very special relation. But first, of course, we have to discuss that I think the modesty of Lee Kuan Yew and his acceptance that although he comes, we know that there are 3 mixed races almost in Singapore. And yet, although the majority of having Chinese descendancy, and like Lee Kuan Yew himself, but he said that everybody is equal for him, and that all the citizens are equal, have the same rights, even if at 1965 they were not the dominant as regard the population, or the dominant as regard the education, or as the background or the richness. They have to be equal in front of the country, in front of the government. And those who are backwards, he will lend them a hand to raise them to the same standard. So all the people of Singapore are living in full integrity, if we can use the expression. Tell us about this important period, and then we go and talk about Egypt and Singapore, sir.
Sure. Okay. This is a bit of a complicated part of our history, because Singapore campaigned to become independent from the British as part of Malaysia. So we did not want to be independent on our own, in the beginning, because at that time it was thought that Singapore and Malaysia formed one economic unit. In fact, this was how the British governed us, as one economic unit, and it was through Singapore that all the Malaysian exports of rubber and tin were exported from the region into the rest of the world. So Singapore was actually at that time the service center or the port for Malaysia. So it was thought that Singapore on its own could not survive because it needed the exports from Malaysia and the business from Malaysia in order to survive. But this is where the race politics come in. And Singapore's Lee Kuan Yew wanted to govern, or thought that Malaysia should be governed as a multiracial meritocratic state. So that means that no affirmative action, everyone equal, whether you're Chinese, Malay or Indian, everybody has the same equal rights, and it is only through performance that you get advanced in whatever career that you do. However, the politicians in Malaysia at the time thought that the Malay race should
to be dominant,
be dominant in Malaysia, and therefore they needed to have special privileges for the Malay race to ensure that they maintained the dominant status. So it was because of this disagreement, to cut a long story short, it was because of this disagreement between the way that Malaysia should be governed, the policies under which Malaysia should be governed, that Singapore was actually expelled from Malaysia. So it was not an independence that we had sought for, but we were actually kicked out. So actually on the day of independence for Singapore in 1965, it was actually a sad day. It wasn't a happy day. And Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew actually cried on TV that because he felt that it was a failure on his part, and that he had fears that Singapore would not succeed as a country.
And he was afraid that he would have to beg them to come back.
Yes, exactly.
But he did something very strange. He went abroad, and he went and met all the companies and offered them offers that they cannot refuse by giving them tax exemptions to open their factories. And he said, we are investing in human beings, and the human beings of Singapore are our treasure. And we're going to breed them, we're going to educate them, we're going to have the best workers in the world. Just give us a chance. And he gave them tax exemptions, not just for 5 years, but even he extended that for another 5 years if they are successful. Do you think this is the secret of success, or his own belief in the country and the people?
I think it was something that was forced upon him by circumstances, because as a country with no natural resources, we only had our people. And therefore, given that the only resources we have are our people, he had to invest and to make sure that our people became the best that they could possibly be, to invest in our people, to educate them. And therefore, I think necessity became our strength. Out of necessity, our strength grew. And also because of good advice from the UNDP and from various advisors, we decided to attract foreign investment. At the time, in the 1960s and the 70s, foreign investment was actually a bad word in the developing world, because it was thought that foreign investors were like the neo-colonialists, the new imperialists. But we had no choice, and we had to create jobs for our people, and so we had to be pragmatic about it. And so, we were attracting foreign investors instead of building up our own industries. So I think it worked out for us that way. Yeah.
And Lee Kuan Yew had a yearly visit to sit, although he's a lawyer by training, by education, and he was educated in the UK, so he was a really enlightened man. But he used to go to Harvard Business School every year for 1 month. And to get, as people say, experience and expertise from the professors of Harvard and from the moguls of industry and moguls of business who came and gave lectures, or what we call now wellness lectures. And he was a student every year for maybe more than 10 years or 15 years. He goes every year to Business Harvard School. So we call this very extremely modest behavior from such an enlightened man, right, sir?
Well, I think it's, as you say, it's very modest, because it recognizes that as a leader, you have to keep up to date with the latest ideas and the latest trends, because if you don't, you will fall behind. So I think, as a leader, it is very important not that you are doing things on your own, but you have to set a direction, right, and a policy. And in order to make sure that you are doing the best in terms of policy and direction, you have to be up to date on the latest ideas of governance, of business, and so on, so that you can set the right direction for your country.
So definitely this is important. And the second important thing that I always hear that from a lot of people, that you will always give a smile. He said, in order to avoid corruption, we're going to give our civil servants the highest amount of salary, and you just go on laughing, because when somebody tells you you have the highest salary as a diplomat in the world, you say, no, this is not true. How far is this true?
Well, actually, this actually only happened in the 1990s. So before that, we were still a poor country, before the 1990s. But when we developed and became, more like a middle-income country, we could afford to pay our civil servants a bit more.
Well, this is very good. So, talking about the economy, and talking about the progress, and talking about the investment in health and in education can take us a long time. But I think we have dealt with that in the previous interviews. So today we are going, after the break, to talk about Egyptian-Singaporean relations, because the relations have been getting always finer since 1965 onwards. Still, the mutual respect between our leaders and the mutual respect and friendship is always something that really should be respected and looked for with admiration. A country that we never had sort of any difference in opinions or in accepting the other. So let's talk about Singapore and Egypt, but after the break. You're still listening to the World of Info. Well, we're still listening to the World of Info. My name is Dr. Amr Mabrouk. Dua Muhammad is still at the control, and we are here with you with His Excellency Ambassador Dominic, the Ambassador of Singapore in Cairo. Sir, we are talking about Egyptian-Singaporean relations, and I believe that Lee Kuan Yew had friendly talk and visits as well between President Nasser and onwards. All the people, or the presidents and the governments, the consecutive governments of Egypt and of Singapore, had always a friendly relation. So tell us about the investment that happened in this relation, how it went 60s onwards, and then we're going, of course, to emphasize during the period of President Sisi.
Well, actually, I have been digging through, and I noticed that there are photos of Lee Kuan Yew with Nasser, with President Nasser at the time, and I think he made several visits to Egypt to meet with President Nasser. And I think this is how the relationship started, by having a good relationship between the two leaders. And then as I digged further, I found also that there were photographs of Mr. Lee Kuan Yew with President Anwar Sadat. And so this meant that the relationship continued with the new government. And I think this has continued up to this day. So, but I think in terms of business, the business relationship is a bit newer, because, in those early days, Singapore was still a developing country. So, and also I think at that time, President Nasser was more interested in building up domestic industries instead of attracting foreign investments. So I think the foreign investment part only started recently. And until now, we are the 5th biggest investor from Asia in Egypt, with a total investment of $700 million, about 129 companies.
$700 million.
Yeah, and 129 companies operating in Egypt. And of these, and mainly in the sectors of food processing, logistics, and warehousing, IT, engineering, oil and gas, and so on.
This is in everything.
But the biggest companies that we have are in food processing and in warehousing and shipping.
So what's the warehousing? Is it?
So there is a big warehouse facility in 10th of Ramadan City by one of our big companies called PIL. And what I recently visited their facility, and it's full.
What do they do?
They basically help to store the stocks of the various big companies like LG, Samsung, Mondelez, the chocolate company, and they store it there, and they help to distribute it for these big companies. And when I visited the factory maybe just 1 month ago, I was told that the factory is now the warehouse is now full, and that they are looking for extra space, and so that means that they're going to expand their business and increase their investments.
So why companies are going to them as companies which are not Singaporean, like Samsung or the chocolate factories or whatever, because they save their products and store their products in a very good environment that will keep them safe and working, right? Extending their shelf life.
Exactly. And at the same time, they help to distribute those goods.
So they have their own cars and their logistics.
Exactly.
So they support in the logistics. This is very intelligent, yes.
The other companies, two big companies we have are called Olam and Tolaram. And Olam is doing dehydrated onions. So they're buying onions from the farmers of Egypt, and then they are processing them and then exporting them to Europe. So in that sense, they are helping Egypt to increase. They're helping the farmers, and then they're helping Egypt to increase its exports.
Very good.
To Europe and to America. And the other company is called Tolaram. And Tolaram, you can see their products in the local supermarkets. It is basically they are manufacturing this instant noodles called Kellogg's instant noodles, and they have grown from 43 million packets a year production now to 430 million packets a year
for production inside the
production in Egypt.
And do they export?
And they export, I think, more than 60% of their output.
That's really very interesting.
So they have expanded their business in Egypt over the years, increased investments and so on, and they are using Egypt as an export base for African market.
Yes. So what else are the companies?
Well, there are other companies like Mindheart, which is it sounds like a German company, but actually it's a Singaporean company, and they are doing engineering project work for large construction projects. And then there's another company called PSA. PSA is our port company in Singapore, and they are doing logistics in Egypt.
That's really very interesting. What are the prospects of having more investment in Egypt? I know that you're very busy in trying to attract investment in Egypt and vice versa to improve the trade between both countries without decreasing the trade deficit, if I may use the expression.
So it is a challenge because Singaporean companies, firstly, they are more active in Asia, since we are near to Asia, and those markets are more familiar to us. The other challenge that I have is that there's always bad news coming out from the Middle East. And people in Singapore, when they hear bad news from the Middle East,
they cannot differentiate between Egypt and other places.
Exactly. So they hear of bad news in, for example, in Libya, and they think Egypt is affected. They hear about bad news in Gaza, and they think Egypt is affected. So it's a constant challenge for me to tell them, no, this is not true. Egypt is actually safe. It's all the countries around Egypt that are not safe. But
so your message is always that Egypt is an oasis of peacefulness.
Yes.
And this is very important for perspective of more business investment. And I think also the work that was done lately during the past 10 years by President Sisi in the infrastructure of the roads and the other infrastructures and the logistics. I think this can be also a mode of attraction for investors, right?
I think President Sisi is genuinely interested to improve the economic development of Egypt. So this is the reason why he has invested so much in roads, in ports, in industrial zones, in and all these things. And now I think he wants to improve the education system, to improve the human resources of Egypt, and all of this is meant to attract foreign investors into Egypt. And I think this is a major policy, a major priority of Egypt. And I'm seeing it, that firsthand that the ministers and the prime minister and the president also are asking for investments. And I think this is very good. So when the president of Singapore came to Egypt, he brought with him a big business delegation of 27 people representing 20 companies. And the message, firstly from the Egyptian side is that Egypt is open for business. And from the Singaporean side, in fact, the president of Singapore himself said this many times, that Egypt is an oasis of stability in a troubled region. So I think this was very much appreciated by President Sisi and all the Egyptian government ministers.
So before we go into details of the president visit, because I know that although I've seen you before the visit and how busy you were, because you arranged, as we say, comme il faut in French, a very good visit, really, to the president, your president, and how the perception of it in Egypt and the perception of it in Singapore. We'll take a break now and we'll come back, more details about this very important visits and the prospects of further cooperation. Stay tuned with us in Radio Cairo. So, still listening to the World of Info with His Excellency Ambassador Dominic, Ambassador of Singapore. Tell us about this visit. So, President Sisi visited Singapore in 2016, and hopefully he will visit it again more and more times. But let's talk about the visit of your president. I know, of course, that the job of the president in Singapore is more or less ceremonial, more than it is like the prime minister, but also protocol-wise and respect-wise, he has a higher degree, and definitely he's representing Singapore as a country. So the visit has its impact. He has come, as you have said, with 27 businessmen, and this is a very big delegate. No, because these 27 business people were representing 20 companies, and that's a very good show, because these companies are not still working yet in Egypt. So this was a great introduction. Tell us about the visit, how you arranged for it, how you perceived of it, how you dreamt of it, and how the Egyptian government has tried to help you in this procedure, sir.
Well, it is very important from the standpoint of developing relations that the president of any country comes to visit. And I think it is highly significant that the president of Singapore chose as his first, because he's a new president, so as his first visit as a president to the Middle East, he chose to come to Egypt. And not just that he came to Egypt, but that he came to Egypt for a long program. Because normally president's visits are maximum 1 or 2 days. But the president of Singapore came for 4 days.
Yeah. Yes, that was tough on him.
So that was the first, indication how important this visit is to have a good relationship between our countries. And in order to make sure that the program was relevant and useful for both Singapore and Egypt, I decided that we had to, of course, meet the president. That is the official part. But also that we should have a business forum together with the Egyptian companies in order to learn about the prospects for business in Egypt, the opportunities and the incentives for foreign companies to operate in Egypt, and also for them to meet with potential Egyptian partners, what we call the business matchmaking part of the business forum. And on top of that, we also went to visit the Suez Canal Economic Zone. And I was told by, Mr. Walid Kamaluddin, the head of the zone, that this is the first time that a president has visited the Suez Canal Economic Zone. So I think this shows, firstly, that Singapore is interested in developing business relations with Egypt, in foreign investment in Egypt, in developing trade relations with Egypt, because of the highly, business-focused nature of the program. And also the fact that we are the first president to visit the Suez Canal Zone. This is very significant. Other parts of the program included to show that Singapore is a big aid donor to Gaza. So we went to visit the Egyptian Red Crescent. And I did not know it at the time, but I was later informed that the president of Singapore's visit to the Egyptian Red Crescent is the first by a foreign president.
Visit
to the Egyptian Red Crescent.
Yes.
It is the first visit of a foreign president to the Egyptian Red Crescent. So I thought that is also very highly significant. And also that, it shows what importance that we place on the humanitarian assistance to Gaza.
And this is really very interesting. And of course, the president took the chance to visit the gem.
Yes, yes. And also at the Red Crescent, the president witnessed the handover of $1 million worth of aid from the Singapore Red Cross to the Egyptian Red Crescent for Gaza. Then, the third element of the program, the fourth element, political, economic, humanitarian, and the fourth element is cultural. And this is, shown by the fact that the president showed a very genuine interest in the history and culture of Egypt. So he visited the pyramids, he visited the gem, he visited the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization, what we call NEMEC, and he showed great interest in the Egyptian history, genuine interest, because he wanted to learn more about the Egyptian history. And on top of that, he also visited the Ramses Wisawasef Center and the Fustat Center for Local Traditional Crafts to learn about the current culture and traditions of Egypt. So you could say, firstly, there is an element of wanting to learn about Egypt and interested in the arts and culture of Egypt. But on the other side, because the president's visit is so highly publicized in Singapore, that this becomes also a tourism promotion for Egypt in Singapore, right? So Egypt benefits a lot from this visit by the president, firstly in the business sense and also in the cultural and tourism sense.
And I believe that the Singaporean citizens have seen firsthand that what you are saying and what all the reports are saying about the peacefulness and how Egypt is a peaceful oasis in the middle of the Middle East definitely is being conveyed practically, not just theoretically through the internet, the sources of information. They have seen for themselves how the president has been moving smoothly all over Cairo in different directions, and yet there were no extra security measures or any threats to his security and safety.
And not just that, that the president himself said so. So the president himself said it at least 3 times, that Egypt is an oasis of stability and peace in a very troubled region. He said it to the Singapore business delegation when he met them before the business forum. He said it to President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, and he said it in his final interview to the Singaporean press. So this would have been reported definitely by the Singaporean press in the Singaporean newspapers, that Egypt is safe.
This is really very important. So hopefully Singaporean Airlines will come back.
Yes, I'm hoping so.
You're trying much.
I'm trying. It takes a bit of time, but inshallah it will happen.
Smooth as silk. Right? Well, we can talk forever about the importance of this visit, but let us also more emphasize on the future of tourism between our countries. I know Singapore has been always part of a lot of people go and visit Singapore, of course maybe unannounced, but anyone who has the chance to go to Singapore, you just go and visit and come back saying that it's a beautiful, fine city. Of course, fine because people have to stick to the law and nobody is above the law, but also because the beauty and the cleanliness and the outlets and all these prospects. So do you think that there will be more Singaporean tourists coming to Egypt?
I think definitely as a result of all the publicity that Egypt has received during the president's visit, and also the fact that President has said that Egypt is safe, and also that they see it for themselves. I think definitely that we will start to see more Singaporeans coming to Egypt.
Of course, before we leave this point, we talk about the Singaporeans in Egypt. I know that there is people who are living in Egypt from Singaporean origin, of course the workers and the businessmen who are representing their factories and they're working here, but there is a Singaporean community of students who are studying in Al-Azhar, and this has been continuously there since 1965 onwards. 20% of the population of Singapore are devout Muslims, and students coming to study the moderate Islam, if you may use the Ash'ari style of Al-Azhar, which is well known being modest and moderate, makes Cairo and Al-Azhar Mosque on university one of the important places for this rising community. And when they go back, they serve their community over there with a lot of good advice. Tell us about this, because this has been since 1965 or even before that, right, sir?
Yes, indeed. In fact, one of our oldest madrasas has a relationship with Al-Azhar since the 1960s. And I recently also found out that the Malay community in Singapore, they are also eating fool.
Even there, right? They are importing it from Australia or what?
So I think this connection with fool means that the people who have studied at Al-Azhar are bringing it back to Singapore, right?
Yes.
So this shows the very long relationship that we have with Al-Azhar. And in fact, we have close to 200 students studying at Al-Azhar.
At any time, right?
At any time. And they are having a good time here. I mean, in the sense that they feel safe, they feel comfortable, they are learning the correct or the moderate form of Islam, which is important for a country like Singapore, where we have many races and religions. So Islam has to coexist with many other religions.
Yes, accepting the other is the motto of Islam.
Exactly.
Of course.
Exactly. So, and also that was one of another objective of the president's visit, which is to demonstrate the racial harmony and religious harmony in Egypt. So he visited Al-Azhar, he visited the Grand Imam, and he visited the Pope of Tawadros. So this is to show and to demonstrate, firstly, the tolerance and moderation of Egypt, and also to show Singaporeans that, you know, the importance of being moderate and tolerant.
He met the students, of course?
And of course he met the students.
You arranged a reception so that they meet him, right?
We had a reception, and to all Egyptians
to
all Egyptians living in Egypt, we have not yet had our national day. We will have it soon.
I mean, but the Singaporean students met the president.
Yes, but Singaporean students met the president, and they shared some words with him and took some photos with him. So it was a good.
This is, I think, was an important branch of communication as well. So when we talk about this president visit, I think when you can say the success rate of it, or the success percentage of it, I think it's getting into the high rank of success. Do we aspire to see furthermore, before the visits, furthermore business investment in Egypt after these 27 businessmen came?
I think it is a good start. Attracting investments is a process. It's not a one-off.
Yes.
So this is a good start, and now the businessmen are exposed. They know what is happening. So I think they have to now go back and to see and to do their calculations and to talk to their business partners. And I think there will be. I'm quite confident that there will be more investments coming in the next months, maybe a year or so.
And they have visited the Singaporean outlets or companies here.
Yes, exactly. They have visited
to touch firsthand,
to see for themselves that they are doing well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think this was very important that they came here and saw the older investments of Singaporeans. So after the break, we'll talk more about the Egyptian-Singaporean relations. Stay tuned with us in Radio Cairo. So still listening to the World of Info, and today with His Excellency Ambassador Dominic, Ambassador of Singapore to Cairo. There were almost 14 MOUs, memorandum of understanding, that were signed between the Egyptian government and the Singaporean government. And I've seen a lot of very distinguished ministers signing very particular agreements that I think will be materialized very soon. Tell us about this, because I believe this is a very important step that you have been dreaming of, that the President's visit will achieve in Egypt.
Well, thank you for that. And during the visit of the Singapore President, we signed 14 agreements, as you have said, with the Egyptian government. And when I mentioned, to my other ambassador colleagues that we signed 14 agreements,
they felt jealous.
they
are always jealous of you, sir, because you are an accomplisher.
They actually comment that that's a big number of agreements that have been signed. So I think it was very important and it shows
you have worked for that for a very long time.
Exactly.
To touch on that.
Exactly, and it shows the interest of Singapore to engage Egypt and to further strengthen the relations between the two countries. So what were
these points of
agreement? For example, there's an agreement on health cooperation. There is an agreement on social cooperation, social protections. There's an agreement on education. There's an agreement to improve cooperation in the small, medium enterprise sector. There was an agreement on creating a smart port. There was an agreement on technical education. So, and there was an agreement to on growing a new type of rice from Singapore in Egypt. So,
less consuming of water, I hope, right?
Yes, it uses less water and it creates more rice.
Very good.
Yeah.
So, Singapore is a master of technical education programs since Lee Kuan Yew, because Lee Kuan Yew, when he publicized among the investors of the 1960s, he said, we have good workers, we have clever workers, come and invest with us and you'll find the best workers in the world. So taking advice from Singapore in technical education is really something that has proved its effect and the test of years. Tell us about this particular agreement, sir.
Yes, in fact, there were two agreements in the technical education side. And the first one is...
They were signed by the Minister of Education of Egypt, or something?
No, it was signed between two agencies that will implement. So one of them is that our technical education college will certify the certificates of graduates from Egyptian technical education schools, so that they will be recognized internationally. That is one agreement. The other agreement is that we will help an Egyptian company to establish a hotel training school based on Singaporean standards and Singaporean curriculum.
Very good.
Yeah.
And then the education per se, I mean the higher education, you have also have a signed...
No, there wasn't the higher education, but there was a general agreement on education, and the Minister of Education plans to go to Singapore in order to discuss this further.
Yes, I think he has a visit to Singapore and to Korea. He told me this yesterday. The health.
On the health side, we are going to promote more training and more cooperation with Egypt in the health sector for doctors and nurses. And also, we have also deployed some doctors in Egypt to help the Palestinian people.
And the social?
On the social side, I think right now it's still a general cooperation agreement, so the ministers will meet to discuss specific projects.
The small enterprises is something which is a lot of that is a service that is very eminent in Singapore. I know because the limited space that Singapore lives in makes it the small factories and the small enterprises that are producing state-of-art products. They are very clever in that. So tell us about this particular agreement.
For this one, I think the aim is to create networks and also to help to Egypt to develop its small medium enterprise sector.
Very good. So when we talk about that, of course, the smart port, you are very clever in the smart porting system, because Singapore, for people, has been always a port since 1819 onwards. And this port, as a deep sea port, has advanced by years to become a state of art now in the 21st century. So how are you going to export this experience and try to invest in it in the ports of Egypt?
Yes, so the idea is to create like digital management systems for one of the Egyptian ports. And
we'll do copycat for it.
And if that one succeeds well, then we will replicate it in all the other ports of Egypt.
Well, this is really great memos, and I believe that's why your fellow ambassadors should be feeling jealous from the east and from the west.
Thank you very much.
Well, with His Excellency Ambassador Dominic Go, we can really talk forever, but let's take it a bit personal, because you've been living here in Egypt for the past 5 years. And you have gone through a lot of visits. I think as an avid reader and an avid traveler, you have traveled around Egypt. You have seen for yourself the Egyptians and their treasures and their cultural treasures and heritage. Tell us about your personal point of view about Egypt and Egyptians that you want to tell your fellow citizens in Singapore about your experience.
Well, I think, Egypt is a very interesting place with a lot of cultural and historical treasures. And I think it is very important for anyone who wants to learn about history to come and visit Egypt. Because Egypt, as everyone knows, is the mother of the world and the mother of civilizations. So civilization started in Egypt.
Dunya, as they say.
Dunya. And
yes.
So we have to come to Egypt to have a good understanding of this.
And of course, you are also a food critic. And I like that very much. Sometimes on your page, and this is you take it very seriously on yourself, that when you see some of the street paroler foods or public or popular restaurants, even if they are not 5-star hotels or 5-star parolers, you go and examine yourself, and this is something admirable. So this is a hobby of yours you've been doing, I think, in different places. I think when you served in Laos and in Germany, you were always interested into micro restaurants or not just brands of restaurants. Tell us about this experience, sir.
Well, I think, wherever I go, I like to try the local food, to try something new, something different. And not always just eat the same, hamburger and hot dog, yes. Or McDonald's, Yes. But to try something different and to taste the local culture. And I think there is in Egypt a lot of interesting food to sample.
It's definitely a very rich kitchen. I mean,
yes.
It has been absorbing a lot of kitchens from abroad. The fact that Egypt has been always welcoming different races and different people from different countries. So you can really see that Egypt has a cosmopolitan kitchen by taking Turkish foods, Mamluk food, and Arab Peninsula food. You can have a taste of everything at the same day, right?
Exactly. And one good development now that I'm noticing in the last 2 years is the development of fine dining. Based on Egyptian cuisine. So this is starting to develop, and I think it will be something very interesting to watch and to sample.
Yes, I think so, because back in maybe 10 years back, there were only 2 or 3 restaurants in the whole of Egypt that are presenting traditional Egyptian food, meaning that molokhia, ruz, and aranab, and all this type of food. But nowadays there are a lot of restaurants, and I think this is a very sharp observation of your side. And these shops are present all over Cairo, and they are becoming very fashionable, right?
Yes, and in fact, not just that they are serving the traditional food, but that they are presenting the traditional flavors in new dishes.
Yes.
So I think this is something interesting to watch.
Well, we can talk for hours, sir, but you promised to come back again to our program. you've been always welcome in our program. We have you always come to us in a yearly visit, and I think with the richness of your experience and your information and your kindness, you've been always really a dear friend of Egypt and me personally. His Excellency, Your Excellency Ambassador Dominic, thank you for taking the time to come in our program.
No, thank you. Always a pleasure to see you, my dear friend, Dr. Amr.
Thank you, sir. And looking forward to see you very soon. And this was the World of Info. We had His Excellency Ambassador Dominic, the Ambassador of Singapore to Cairo, talking about life and times in Cairo, the old mother of the world, if we may use the expression. My name is Dr. Amr Mabrouk. Dua Muhammad was at the controls. Stay tuned always to Radio Cairo. We promise to come back the same time, the same station next week, and always please stay tuned to Radio Cairo FM 95.4.